person may pretend to be in love for various reasons, but most often it happens when they have a specific goal in mind, whether it's financial gain, a desire for intimacy, or an attempt to resolve a situation in their favor. However, for the second person, the one being deceived, everything seems completely serious. And the further this game of emotions goes, the more horrifying the outcome of the situation can be. Friends, I really need your help. I've never asked you for anything before, but now I have to. My YouTube channel is going through tough times and it really upsets me. If it's not too much trouble, please watch the video until the end. Don't turn it off as it messes up YouTube's algorithm. Leave a like and a comment. Thank you. You are amazing. Now, let's get back to the horrifying events. The case of Brenda Michaela Gordillo shook all of Argentina with its inexplicable brutality. No one could have imagined that a seemingly innocent romantic relationship between students would turn into a real tragedy. Brenda Michaela Gordillo was born on May 16, 1995 in the Argentine province of Catamarca. She was the youngest of 3 children and the only daughter in a middle-class family. She was raised alongside her 2 older brothers, Ivan and Federico, who always looked out for and protected her. Brenda was also very close to her mother, Florencia. Brenda excelled in school. She was responsible, organized, and goal-oriented. She loved being in the spotlight, easily got along with everyone, avoided conflicts, and resolved disputes peacefully. So it was no surprise that in high school, she decided to pursue a career in psychology to help people. After graduating, Brenda enrolled in a prestigious university in the capital, choosing to specialize in negotiation psychology and conflict resolution. Soon, she became one of the top students in her program, and professors predicted a brilliant career for her. She planned to stay in Buenos Aires and find work there, but a tragic event in her family changed everything. During her penultimate year of studies, one evening, her brother called to tell her that their father had suddenly passed away from a heart attack. The entire family was devastated, especially their mother, who was now left alone in their family home. By that time, Brenda's older brothers were already married and living separately, while she was studying in Buenos Aires. After defending her thesis, Brenda returned to her home province of Catamarca to live with her mother, as she couldn't leave her alone. She found a job and at the same time decided to pursue a second degree in law at a local university. Immersing herself in student life again, she made new friends, among them a young man named Name Vera. Name Vera was born on June 11, 1999 in Catamarca. He was the youngest of 2 sons in a well-known and wealthy family of distinguished doctors. His father was a leading cardiac surgeon, and his mother was a pediatrician with a private practice. Name grew up alongside his older brother, James, who was his complete opposite. Their parents did everything to provide the best for their sons. While James was passionate about knowledge and dreamed of following in his parents' footsteps to become a doctor, Name was lazy, arrogant, and selfish from an early age. He had striking looks, played sports, and only wore designer clothes. He knew how to make an impression, and girls at school were crazy about him. In high school, Name tried illegal substances for the first time and began experimenting with them. He constantly got into trouble, but he always got away with it. The young man grew up to be a true narcissist, arrogant and aggressive. A long trail of disgraceful stories followed him, involving bullying, assaults, harassment, and uncontrollable rage. In 2018, Name graduated from high school and decided it was time to turn his life around, leaving behind his reckless and thoughtless actions. He underwent treatment for addiction and managed to enroll in university to study law. There, he soon met Brenda, who immediately caught his attention. Brenda, too, was instantly drawn to this handsome, bold, and assertive young man. At the time of their acquaintance, she was 23 years old, while he had just turned 19. Despite the noticeable age difference, she reciprocated his interest. On their very first day together, they stayed out late at a bar and later went to an apartment owned by Name's parents, to which he had the keys. There they became intimate, and from that moment on, they started seeing each other regularly. For the first time in her life, Brenda fell deeply in love and was overjoyed. Her friends and family noticed the change in her, but none of them had actually met her mysterious boyfriend, even though she spoke about him constantly. She only showed her mother and brother pictures of Name from social media, noting that he was her future fiancé. Time passed, yet Name showed no intention of introducing Brenda to his relatives or friends. They continued meeting in the same apartment, enjoying their time together, but never appeared in public as a couple. This was strange, but Brenda convinced herself that he simply needed more time. She also feared that Name might be ashamed of introducing her to his family because of their age difference. Their relationship continued, but always in secrecy. Still, every time Name invited Brenda to see him, she rushed to him without hesitation. This secret romance lasted for about 6 months, during which time Name gradually lost interest in Brenda. However, she refused to see the signs. One day, Brenda received a call from an unknown number. The caller, who introduced himself as Name's cousin, warned her to be careful. He told her that Name had a tendency toward aggression, and that if it weren't for his wealthy parents, he would have been in prison long ago for everything he had done. The caller advised Brenda to end the relationship before it was too late, but she ignored the warning. In mid-February 2019, Brenda suddenly realized she was pregnant. This news came as a complete shock to her, but despite everything, she was overjoyed. She believed that the news of the baby would push Name to take their relationship more seriously and finally propose to her. During their next meeting, Brenda shared the news with Name. At first, he was stunned, but then his reaction turned into fury. He said he was not ready to be a father, that having a child was not part of his plans, and he demanded that Brenda terminate the pregnancy immediately, promising to cover all expenses. However, Brenda firmly refused, explaining that she had certain health issues and that being able to conceive was a miracle for her. The couple had a heated argument, and Name even told her that they should end their relationship entirely. For some time, they didn't see each other, but they continued messaging on social media. Brenda admitted to her friend during that period that she missed him terribly and sincerely hoped for their reunion. She also said that she had never loved anyone so much before. When at the end of February, Name finally called her and suggested meeting to calmly discuss everything, she was incredibly happy and thought he had changed his mind. She shared her thoughts and feelings with her close friend, who supported her. So the meeting was scheduled for late in the evening on February 28, 2019. That day, Brenda had been invited to a birthday party for one of her classmates, but after the celebration, she went to Name's apartment, where she was never seen again. The next day, on Friday, March 1, Brenda did not show up for her university classes, even though she had never skipped lectures without a valid reason before. Now no one could reach her, and no one had any idea where she was. Brenda's mother knew about the party, and her daughter had also informed her that she wouldn't be coming home that night, but she didn't specify whether she would be staying at a friend's place or at her boyfriend. Brenda had planned to go straight to class in the morning without stopping at home, so her mother didn't immediately worry. She only found out about Brenda's disappearance later in the afternoon when the university called her. Brenda's friends and family immediately started searching for her. Everyone understood that she wouldn't just disappear without telling anyone. However, at that moment, there was still hope that she had simply lost track of time while being with her boyfriend. As her loved ones frantically called everyone they could, hoping to find any clue about Brenda's whereabouts, an event occurred that completely changed the situation. All hope for a positive outcome was shattered in an instant. Brenda was dead. On the morning of March 1, 2019, Name Vera arrived at the Catamarca police station, accompanied by his father and 2 lawyers. The young man stated that he wanted to confess and tell the authorities about the tragedy that had occurred the previous night. He was taken to an interrogation room where he shared a shocking story. Name appeared upset but remained calm and confident. He explained that the night before, he had arranged to meet a female acquaintance at his apartment for an intimate encounter. According to him, they had occasionally spent time together like this, without any commitments or expectations. However, that night, a serious argument broke out between them, and he asked her to leave immediately. The apartment where they met was a 2-level unit with a staircase inside. Allegedly, during the argument, Brenda took a step back, lost her balance, and tumbled down the stairs. Name claimed that he tried to catch her but failed, and when he rushed to her side, he realized she was no longer breathing. He attempted to give her first aid, but it was in vain. Brenda had broken her neck in the fall. Name panicked, realizing that he could be accused of murder, so he quickly decided to dispose of the body. He couldn't think of anything better than trying to burn it on a large grill that stood on the terrace. Finding a bottle of lighter fluid in the cupboard, he poured it over the corpse and struck a match. The fire ignited instantly, but the flames grew too high, and the suffocating smoke threatened to attract attention. Soon, a man from a neighboring apartment looked outside, surprised to see someone grilling meat in the middle of the night. However, when the man made eye contact with Name, the young man simply greeted him with a friendly wave. Later, during the trial, the neighbor testified that Name appeared completely calm, even content. The neighbor suspected nothing unusual and did not call the police. Soon, the young man realized that a grill was not a crematorium, and he would not be able to completely destroy the body. He then carried the remains back into the apartment and used a large knife to separate the lower half of the body from the upper half. He packed everything into garbage bags, placed them in boxes, and drove off in his car without a clear plan for disposal. He simply dumped the lower half of the body into random trash bins he passed along the way, while he took the upper half out of the city and threw it into a shallow ravine. just a few dozen meters from the road, covering it with dirt, branches, and debris. As he returned to his car, he was nearly caught by passing patrol officers. They stopped to ask why his car was parked by the roadside, but Name managed to talk his way out of it, lying that he had received a call from a girl and had pulled over to talk. Back at the apartment, the killer began cleaning up the evidence but soon realized that the mess was overwhelming and he couldn't handle it alone. He decided to ask his cousin for help. He called him and confessed everything. At first, his cousin didn't believe him, thinking Name had relapsed into using illegal substances. However, after some thought, he called his uncle, Name's father, and told him everything. From that moment, Name's father, Vera Sr., took control of the situation. He consulted with lawyers and forced his son to turn himself in to the police, hoping for a reduced sentence. Name personally led investigators to the locations where he had disposed of the remains. Moreover, when he had thrown the bags into the dumpster, a security camera from a nearby building captured both him and his car. So, even if Name had tried to retract his confession, there would have been no doubt about who had disposed of the body parts. The second gruesome box was found in the ravine outside the city, and all the remains were immediately sent to forensic experts for examination. However, the autopsy revealed shocking results, completely contradicting Name's version of events. Despite the body being severely burned and later dismembered, no injuries consistent with a fall down the stairs were found. The victim had no fractures or significant bruises, and her neck was not broken as Name had claimed. Instead, Brenda's larynx had been completely crushed with bare hands. Mechanical asphyxiation was the true cause of her death. But that wasn't all. Inside the victim's mouth, forensic experts found tiny fibers of fabric, later identified as fibers from Brenda's own scarf. This meant that the killer had gagged her before strangling her. Furthermore, fresh scratch marks were found on Name's hands, indicating that the victim had fought desperately for her life. Every piece of evidence screamed that Name had brutally and mercilessly murdered his guest. As soon as Brenda's family and friends were informed of the tragic news, another shocking detail emerged. Brenda had been pregnant, something Name had conveniently left out of his confession. When police confronted him about this directly, he admitted that Brenda had been blackmailing him with the pregnancy for the past few weeks. According to him, their relationship had been purely physical, without any romantic involvement, and neither of them had planned for it to become anything more, let alone lead to a child. When Brenda found out she was pregnant, Name immediately offered to pay for an abortion, but she flatly refused, leading to multiple arguments. On the night of the murder, they had another heated fight about it. This time, Brenda not only insisted on keeping the baby, but also demanded that Name marry her. Enraged by her ultimatum, he strangled her to death. However, there was one discrepancy in the entire story. The autopsy revealed no pregnancy in the deceased, so it's possible she was indeed blackmailing her young wealthy lover, hoping to marry him. In an attempt to get to the bottom of the situation, detectives dug even deeper and found out that Brenda was actually unable to have children due to medical reasons. She had learned about her grim diagnosis during her teenage years, but why did she lie to Name? Virginia, a close friend of the victim, during another conversation with detectives, revealed that Brenda had indeed thought she was pregnant some time ago, as she had a delayed period. She felt all the symptoms and was genuinely happy when the doctors made a mistaken diagnosis. However, when Brenda shared the news of her supposed pregnancy with her boyfriend, he didn't want to hear anything about the baby and simply ended the relationship. Brenda had shared the news of her presumed pregnancy with only two of her closest friends. She hadn't even gone to the doctor to confirm it and hadn't told her mother. According to Virginia, Brenda wasn't planning to deceive or blackmail anyone. She truly believed she was expecting a child and was making plans for the future with Name. Name Vera was arrested the same day he turned himself into the authorities and gave his version of the tragic events. However, the young man insisted that everything that had happened was an accident. He was in a state of shock, so he didn't call an ambulance or the police and decided to dispose of the body in such a horrific, barbaric manner. But most importantly, he claimed that there was nothing between him and Brenda other than a physical relationship. The thing is, under Argentine law, murder committed within the context of family or romantic relationships is classified as a crime with aggravating circumstances. In such a case, it is considered that the person is in a vulnerable state because they trust their partner, do not perceive any danger from them, and their survival instinct is dulled. If it is proven in court that the victim and the perpetrator were in a relationship, the young man could face severe punishment, including life imprisonment. However, if he manages to convince the judges that he and Brenda were strangers to each other and that they were only connected by sex without any obligations, he could face no more than 15 years in prison. For this reason, Name and the lawyers hired by his father were trying their best to prove the lack of any close relationship between the accused and the deceased. As evidence, they pointed to the facts that the couple had never appeared together in public, didn't have any joint photos, and hadn't introduced each other to their families and friends. However, Brenda's friends and family claimed that the girl was truly in love with the guy and believed her feelings were mutual. She didn't want to pressure him, so she didn't insist on introducing him to her family, thinking he just needed a little more time than she did. One of Name's classmates mentioned that he didn't take the relationship with the girl seriously, and he just enjoyed spending time with her, but in reality, he was simply leading her on and giving her false hope. When she announced her pregnancy, the guy literally panicked and wanted to get rid of the problem by any means. Moreover, a week before the tragedy, he had asked his cousin to find someone willing to kill a person for money. The cousin dismissed it as depression and the guy's delusional fantasies, only realizing the gravity of the situation when Name called him in the middle of the night asking for help to cover up the crime. The Vera family publicly expressed their condolences to the deceased girl's loved ones, claiming that the tragedy had also destroyed their lives. However, Name's lawyers continued to do everything possible to defend their client and minimize his guilt. They tried to present the perpetrator as the victim, claiming that Brenda had stalked him and blackmailed him with a non-existent pregnancy, attempting to force him to marry her, allegedly pursuing her own selfish motives and seeing in her lover a wealthy, promising husband. Name himself tried to attribute his actions to a state of emotional distress and shock, but he failed to convince anyone. The thing is, during his first interrogation, he described in great detail how he disposed of the girl's body, but he likely wouldn't have remembered such details if he had truly been in shock. Moreover, a neighbor who saw him on the terrace by the grill noted that the young man was completely calm, greeted him, and even waved as if nothing extraordinary was happening. A psychiatric examination also revealed that the perpetrator was sane at the time of the crime and was fully aware of his actions, so he could be held accountable for them. At the same time, specialists found signs of psychopathy, borderline personality disorder, and bipolar affective disorder in Name, but none of this mitigated his guilt under the law. The Vera family had money and extensive connections, which could have helped the perpetrator avoid just punishment. His lawyers intentionally delayed the process, waiting for the media frenzy around the case to settle down, and the relatives of the victim seriously feared that Name would receive minimal punishment or even get away with it entirely. The trial finally took place in May 2021. The process was widely covered in the media. The key issue remained determining the nature of the relationship between the killer and the victim. In this matter, the defense, pointing to the defendant's young age, tried to prove that he was not ready for a serious relationship and that his connection with Brenda was accidental. Throughout the trial, the defendant remained cold and detached. He clearly showed no remorse or regret for his actions. Nevertheless, on the advice of his defense lawyers, Name apologized to the Gordillo family, but his apology sounded far from sincere. It was more like a mockery. On May 14, 2021, Name was found guilty of a brutal crime with aggravating circumstances and attempting to cover up the crime. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and ordered to pay Brenda's family 3 million pesos as moral compensation. The defendant waived his final statement and listened to the verdict with a stone-cold face, as if none of it concerned him. However, immediately after the verdict was announced, the Vera family's lawyers stated their intention to appeal the decision in the appellate court. While the defense prepared materials for the re-examination with new witnesses and evidence of innocence, old stories began to resurface in the press, stories that the defendant's parents had successfully suppressed at the time. Two of Name's former classmates came forward, accusing him of stalking and harassment. The victims agreed to testify in court, claiming that Name was truly dangerous. He was not used to rejection, as girls always threw themselves at him. However, when one classmate didn't reciprocate his feelings, he began stalking her, threatening her, and trying to humiliate her in every way. Another peer even had to change schools because Name attempted to assault her, and when that failed, he spread rumors about her and leaked several explicit photos online. All of this went unpunished, as his father's lawyers managed to cover up both scandals. In March 2022, the case was re-examined. Taking into account the testimony of new witnesses, the court upheld the original verdict. Name was sent to prison for life, with the possibility of parole only after 51 years. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to my channel. There are many more interesting and shocking stories coming your way. See you soon.